I wait 2 more minutes. Then, Aung, are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Okay, I don't know if you heard the applause from the audience. I think everyone is moving and
Thank you. Thank you.
crying. So Debbie, can you please? Debbie is a well-known activist. She needs introduction, but she's the director and founder of ASEAN, which is a very committed organization to Myanmar and ASEAN more generally. Maybe you can sit there. And she has been active for decades. As you know, the story of Myanmar is a very long history of military coup, and since the very beginning she was there, and she's still continuing to be there. But first, maybe I give the word to Aung Suu to say something first. Again, if you want to comment any more things before I give the words to Debbie.
Of course. So after you've watched this film, I want you to ask the question to yourself. What did you feel? You know, what do you feel after you watched the film? So you might want to explore a lot of words like a lot of moods like sad, sympathetic, unsatisfactory, or like angry, but among all those feelings, I really want you to be angry. I really want you to be angry. I really want anyone to be angry after watching this film, or after you heard a story from Myanmar Spring Revolution, or after you lost a friend, you lost a family member in this moment of Myanmar, So I believe that anger, this time we should really be angry, and this could bring more actions. I don't think like not enough people are like being angry, so that's why more and more people are losing their lives. They have to sacrifice their times in prison. So I really encourage people to be angry after you heard or you see any story about Myanmar's Spring Revolution. And also I would like to say that there are 2 QR codes at the end of the film. So this film is produced together with a report from ATAN. ATAN is a freedom of expression activist group from Myanmar. So they have done a lot of research about internet restriction and peaceful assembly and many other subjects. So this documentary is done together with their report, and you can scan the 2 QR codes. It's both available in Burmese and English, so that you're gonna know more information, and you have all the data about how this military and the junta had applied intense force to crack down the peaceful protesters. Thank you very much.
These are the QR code, but I don't want to close the face of, maybe at the end we put it
Sure.
again on the scare. So Debbie, please, any reaction? And maybe also you want to say something about the situation now at this moment in current situation in Myanmar, and then maybe some reaction to the documentary.
I wanted to firstly express heartfelt appreciation to Ong Nai So and the entire crew that put that film together, and also all the people in the street who attended those protests and who also documented that. It's a little bit hard to speak after watching that. I agree that we should be angry. But also we should use that anger. That's the anger that we should wake up, that makes us get out of bed in the morning and do something for this revolution. You know, we saw this happening in 88. So when I hear democracy yashiye doye doye in the streets of Yangon in that footage, this is happening just this year and last year, and it's like, oh my God, you know, so many people died in 88, and it was covered up. And then in 2007, when young people went on the street during the Saffron Revolution, they were killed. And in 2010, governments all around the world said, don't worry, there's an election. It's not the best election, but it's a start. Forget about accountability. Don't make the military angry. Military must be part of the solution. So people who were killed in 88, who were killed in wars and attacks on ethnic people all around the country, people who were killed in 2007, Saffron Revolution, they died. They lost, some of them survived. They lost their youth. Their lives were destroyed, and they had to be sacrificed for the sake of some kind of transition that included the military as part of the solution. And when human rights activists said this 2008 constitution is fucked, it's going to create the ability to have another coup. These guys have been killing people. They should not be allowed to even have a place in parliament, let alone in government. Hello, excuse me, do you realize that between 2010 and 2020, the military budget is now nearly 3 times what it was? In 2020, the military budget was nearly 3 times what it was in 2010. And people said, oh, don't be negative. Think about the future, you know, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is this. I was just reminded in 2007, I was talking with Chanai, who's founded Democratic Voice of Burma, and we were organizing to smuggle in video equipment and satellite equipment to make sure that documentation about the Saffron Revolution would get out. And Chanai, we were on the phone, and he said, did you see the footage? They were so young. They're so young, and they're in the street. And I said, that was you in 88. This is now this generation. And now in 2021, when we saw people in the street, we were going like, oh my God, they're so young. And what can we need to be angry about a military that kills young people every generation. We cannot let them get away with it. No military part of the solution bullshit anymore. This is the situation that we need to make sure. We need to keep this anger. We need to keep this energy. Because when they start talking peace talks, when the military is exhausted because they got no more aviation fuel to bomb civilians, to launch airstrikes, when they run out of bullets because we campaign to stop the weapons and the revenue, and they say, finally, we are willing to talk peace, it must not be another scenario where military is so-called part of the solution, because we'll be seeing another film like this 20 years down the track, or even 10 years down the track. So I think, firstly, I know many people say, oh, Burma, we are suffering from Burma fatigue. Well, think of all the young people that are out there still doing this work, this dangerous work. They don't know what's happening in the international community, but they can only hope, and they're willing to put their lives and liberty on the line. We cannot afford to be fatigued. They are not. We should not be. So I think, when we look at the situation now, people saying Ukraine is so much bigger. Well, we analyzed the conflict data for 2022 so far. As of 30th of November this year, Burma had the highest number of property destruction and looting. We're talking about bombing schools, hospitals, places of worship, burning down homes. Yeah, it's higher than what happened in Ukraine. This is not Burmese documenters. This is the ACLED database. Burma this year had the highest number of attacks targeting civilians, nearly 3 times what happened in Ukraine. Burma had more than 17,000 fatalities. Not the people killed by the military acknowledged by AAPP, but really across the board. This compares to 24,000 people killed in Ukraine. So what does this mean? How can we even tolerate what's going on next door when the level of response hasn't been the same as Ukraine? If there's something we know, I want everyone to watch this film. Please tell your friends about it. Please encourage people to go to the screening so we understand, those numbers of people tortured, those numbers of people killed, those numbers of people arrested and detained. Every one of them is the story in here that represents how many thousands of other people young people going through the same situation. I just want to say thank you again for everyone for being here, and thank you to Ong Nang So and his team. But I also wanted to end with saying a name of someone I know who inspired me when I met her in 2020, Susha Shintan, a transgender activist. We got the news yesterday that she's been jailed to 22 years in prison. Every day we get this news. Someone has died. Someone has disappeared. Someone has been sentenced to jail. And every time you hear this, don't be disheartened. Sue, we just call her Sue, really fabulous, amazing personality, sarcastic like hell, great sense of humor, so much grit and guts. And she's in jail, and now we have to follow what was said in the film. When one goes down, there has to be 10 coming up. So we have the obligation to carry forward those guts, those courage, that sense of humor, that determination in what we do for Burma. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. I want to add this transgender, actually, the photo of her doing a performance against the military in the beginning of the protest actually was exposed in an exhibition we did on women that was the exhibition focused on women during this revolution movement, because many women and LGBTIQ and other people were part and parcel and played a very important role. And it's the same woman that is now indeed been condemned to 20 years of jail. So I will open the floor. Please, any question to Debbie or to Angsu? Please, okay, first introduce yourself and ask the question.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm a priest with the Catholic Church, and I love how you say fuck. It's fantastic. I want to ask, because I just don't get it. What motivates ordinary soldiers on the ground to do what they do? Generals and colonels, they have power, they make lots of money. Well, what's an ordinary working class soldier doing all this stuff? What gets them going? Are they on drugs or what? I don't know.
Let's see first if there is some other ear in the back. Self and
Good afternoon. I'm Sophie. I'm a student from Italy, and thank you very much for the producers of the documentary, as well as to you for the insight you gave us. And yeah, I just wanted to share that what struck me a lot in the documentary was to see these young people in the street. And at one point there was a group of youngers having shields with the R2P whatever written on it. And for me, it was like super, like a shout, a scream, or a request for the international community to wake up and be there. Because as you said, like for Ukraine, we are mobilizing so many resources, like sending weapons, sending money, sending humanitarian aid, advocating, politicians going there on the ground every day. Myanmar is out of the public debate, at least in Europe. So I was wondering, I mean, I'm aware that the agency of the people is also what leads the change and the revolution, but I'm so angry to the government of our countries in Europe and in general of the international community that I wonder, what would you suggest doing? Like, how can we make your voice reach our countries and advocate? Because to see that like request and how much, it's also kind of asked, at least not the intervention, but at least the support against the military government. So what we can do, what we should do. Thank you.
Okay, we have these two. I had one question. This footage of the movie is taken in which period? Can you give chronological, because some is at the very beginning, but is some more recent footage also there? Maybe you can tell us something about this. So I give the words first to, okay, she said to give the word to you, Angsu, please.
Right. Well, thanks for all the questions. So the footage from is very diverse in terms of the time. There are, but most of the footages are from. No, I don't want to say most of the footage. I'm sorry. Like maybe 40–50% of the footages are from the early time, like February and March, and first week of April of 2021, until I was in the country. But then there are other footages of like flash mob protests, and young people screaming on the street. These footages were after April, especially after the 27 March of 2021, because 27 March 2021 was it was originally called like a National Army Day. Then we call fascist days, so sort of like that, because that was the day when the military threatened the protester that they would shoot at the head of the protester, so anyone they see on the street. And I remember that they actually killed like a 10-year-old boy there was footage of his funeral in the music part, in the song. Like, I filmed that event. So he was just playing on the street. There was a story on Vice that I wrote. He was just playing on the street, and he got shot in the head. Like, he was scared when the soldiers came in, but the soldiers shot him like in the back of the head. So anyway, yeah. So the footage are from around that time. And if I can get to the first question, like how this military, how the ordinary soldiers are doing that, with what kind of mind. So there are many, how to say, like many calculation or many estimation based on the action of the ordinary soldiers. Of course, the command of the coup derived from the higher level military officers, like colonels, generals, like some big guys. But there are some young guys, who didn't defect it from the military firsthand. So there were many defectors. So some soldiers, they really sympathized, or like they were really angry at the action of the coup, and then they decided to leave their barrack. They decided to leave their military. They defected, but it was only a fraction. It was only very, very, very little amount. I was told by my defector soldiers, they said there are actually many soldiers, they wanted to defect from the military, but their family members were taken hostage, or like their salaries were seized by their high level officials. That's also one of the reasons that the many soldiers are still remain in the military. And the other reason is that they, how to say, the propaganda campaign generated by the high level military officials like Myanmar or any of his associates, is that what they have been doing, what the junta has been doing, is they were protecting the country and the people and the religion. So that's how they brainwash the low level soldiers, ordinary soldiers. So that's why they really believe that we are also part of the big part of the good merit stuff, good thing, like which is protecting the nation and the religion. So just to get a little bit of understanding about the background of the Myanmar politics and the military, is that so the military always amplified propaganda that says, Daw San Suu Kyi is a wife of a foreigner. She has affiliation with foreign organizations. She has support from Islamic countries. She's going to sell the religion, blah, blah, blah. And the journalists are journalists are betraying the country. Journalists are selling the information of the country to foreign institutions, stuff like that. The military and the nationalists, who are the pro-military groups, they have been generating all those fabricated propaganda all the time in the history of Myanmar, I would say. So, and ordinary soldiers, they do actually believe that, but there are also some progressive soldiers. They don't believe that. They believe in democracy. They like NLD, but only a few of them were able to defect. But the rest of them, their family members were taken hostage in the barrack, or like their salaries and their benefits were controlled by their high level officials. So I hope this explains, why these soldiers still doing that. Of course, there are also not allegation. There are some proof from PDF groups, like People Defense Forces along the border. They were fighting with the military troops, and they have confiscated some yabas and other drugs from the pocket of dead military soldiers, dead Myanmar soldiers. So that means they were also using drugs to kill protesters, or to kill any other people who go against them. So I hope this answered the first question. And the second question is that, and I really appreciate Sophie for being angry. You know, like we can be in this moment of the war. I think, you know, we can be angry at many different organizations, many different individuals, or many different governments. You know, especially. Yes, of course, we should be angry to like European government or like any other powerful institution for not being responsive in this Myanmar crisis. So, well, in terms of what we can do is, I think it is so important not to forget Myanmar. So please don't forget Myanmar and Myanmar people. You know, and we need to inform and raise awareness about Myanmar and the crisis to the world continuously. You know, so we need a lot of effort from journalists, you know, research organization, NGOs, advocates, diplomats, you know. So please keep doing advocacy. Please, like Dawn San Suu Kyi has said once said, you know, she said, please use your liberty to promote ours, you know. So please use, I mean, I'm kind of like have like a moderate amount of liberty, I would say, since I'm not anymore inside Myanmar. So, you know, we have our liberty, you know, we have our freedom, which is bigger than people inside Myanmar. So we should use our liberty to promote the freedom of people inside Myanmar, or the freedom of people in the prisons, in the jail, you know. So we should keep talking about it. And there is a campaign called Don't Forget Myanmar. It's on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It's just simple like Don't Forget Myanmar. And this campaign generated like stickers and some t-shirts and stuff like that. And if anyone wants to do similar, please check those social media pages. If anyone wants to do similar campaign, they are willing to share their material. So you can just reach out to them. And also, there are many documentaries, many reports about Myanmar. So please share those reports and documentaries. And for us, also for this documentary, if anyone wants to organize any screening anywhere all over the world, or like even in your office, you know, please feel free to arrange any screening. I'm like flexible with that. You know, you can just reach out to me. There is a QR code. So outninesoul.com, like you can get my contact on my website, outninesoul.com, and maybe like Leah can able to share my contact at the end of the event. Yeah, so I want to say, please don't forget Myanmar, and you know, please continue amplifying our voices, and also please feel free to let us know, you know, if you want to donate to any groups, any refugees, any people inside Myanmar. You know, we can instruct and we can get you connect with all those groups on the ground. Thank you very much.
Just to add, because we have some professors in the room, I think you told me, and I will do it at Chulalongkorn, but also if you have classes, students where you can share and organize, is more than willing to not only share the documentary, but also be there online. This is what you told me, right?
That's
I
right.
am not
Thank
making
you.
it up. Yes. Okay, so please, Debbie.
Just wanted to say that firstly, when we say what can we do, firstly, Sophie, I'm not Burmese, I'm actually Malaysian. So that's why I didn't say we are on the streets, because but I think it's important that as many people as possible see this film so that they don't forget what's going on. So if friends here speak a different language besides Burmese or English, if you want to actually help with the translation, or so that we can reach wider audiences, that's one very practical thing to do. When we say don't forget Myanmar, one of the things that I learned pretty early on is that forget is a very strong and deeply emotional word for people from Burma, because it's not about forgetting, like, I forgot my checklist. It's actually, don't forget Myanmar. It means deep down inside, don't abandon the cause. So it has a very deep meaning. So when we say don't forget Myanmar, we actually mean don't abandon Myanmar. And the R2B situation, really people thought that if the world saw these atrocities that were taking place and what was going on, that the UN or the international community will step forward and do something to protect the people. And at this point, it is no accident that Burma this year had the highest number of attacks targeting civilians in the world, even higher than Ukraine, because civilian protection of civilians is a huge problem and a huge challenge. If international countries do not want to spend the money to send peacekeeping forces in, they should at least ensure that neighboring countries are able to offer protections of civilians fleeing these atrocities. So this is something which is a huge fundamental challenge that we are all doing. Father John asked why the soldiers do it. This is a part of a very long tradition for many generations. It was first the ethnics, the Karens, the Chins, the Kachins, the Mon, the Karenni, who were dehumanized and demonized in national culture, in national politics. To be called a rebel in the 70s and the 80s was basically like calling you a terrorist. So when they say be rebellious, it's really moving to hear that, because they are reclaiming this word rebel, because in those days the worst thing that could happen to you is someone calling you a rebel, because it meant that family members would go to jail, you would have no educational or livelihood opportunities. Then after the transition started and the war in Kachin state resumed, what they started to do was to actually dehumanize and demonize Muslims and Rohingya. So this is really a part of a long process. So when people are regularly being told these are less than human, they're terrible, they hate you, you shouldn't even let them live in the next village, because who knows, they might come in the night and kill you, this kind of fear, then it becomes very easy for soldiers to think like that. What has happened is that if you look at the conflict figures now, the places that are being subjected to the most attacks are the regions of Sagaing and Magwe. It's very surprising, because these places are the places where the majority of the population are Burman Buddhist. And this is the traditional recruitment ground of the military. So they are bombing the communities that supplied them with soldiers. And this is telling us now why people are defecting, why people are so angry, because the military for many generations felt comfortable bombing and killing and committing atrocities to rural people in ethnic areas. And now it's happening to their own people. They are being ordered to do the same things to their own people. And eventually that will undermine your commitment. So it's very important to understand that some people in the military are starting to wake up. And it's also telling us this is what happens. Burma in the 50s and 60s was considered the country most likely to succeed economically in this region. The standard of education and literacy, the public health system was very high. compared to Thailand, Malaysia, and other neighboring countries. But it was the military coup of 1962 that undermined the education system. More importantly, discouraged people from critical analysis. You know, people had to be obedient, not ask questions. So that's why it's easy to do this kind of thing, because people are being browbeaten and brainwashed and put in fear. So it's always amazing, inspiring, and also kind of scary when people come up from the ground. Young people say, we're not going to take this shit anymore. When we talk about what to do, please, wherever you come from, if you are not an English speaker or Burmese speaker, please use your language. Please translate the stuff that's coming out and make sure that your friends and your colleagues and people in your community learn about what's going on. And the fact that this resistance, the first time in Burmese history, since the military took power in the country in 1962, in this history, we have not seen this level of effective resistance. The military is increasingly cruel. In fact, one of the new strategies is to burn people alive because they are panicking. They have not been able to gain control of the country. Like, Min Aung Hlaing makes the coup 1st of February, says, don't worry, by Water Festival, Tinjan, April, everything will be under control. Ha ha, didn't happen. Then he said, oh, by December, by the end of the year, it'll be under control. No, it didn't happen. If you and I had a coup and we still didn't get control, time for us to change our day job. But no, he wants to have a malelection, a fake election to justify his continued control of the country. And this is something we cannot accept. So I think we firstly, the campaign is to stop the flow of weapons, aviation fuel, because the main power that the military, the illegal junta has above the resistance is the use of their air force. So aviation fuel. Now they're even moving soldiers on commercial airlines because it's too dangerous to move them by road in some places. So aviation fuel is just as dangerous as the bombs and missiles and the other weapons. And the revenues, all these Myanmar oil and gas enterprise, all of these state-owned enterprises are under control of the junta. So we've got to starve them and make it more possible for them to halt the violence. One of the other things which is happening, I think Onaiso will also agree, is that the military junta has been cutting access to the internet and to communications. So what people are screaming out now for is, can someone get a satellite over Burma to provide access to the internet? It's not only for getting the information and the news out. Health trainers are complaining. They're saying we need a satellite because people on the ground need internet access to get medical training and medic training. So on all fronts, whether it's humanitarian, resistance, or communication, we need to get a satellite over Burma so that people can stay in touch, so that people can keep on learning and keep on doing. So I think, you know, the cause is not over. Now more than ever, the movement has a stronger chance to win. The resistance is happening on so many levels, in so many ways. So we do need to make sure that they don't fail, because if they fail, we also fail. We cannot afford Burma to collapse under a military junta.
Okay, so one last round. We have a question from Facebook. Is anyone here? Yes, please. Short and sweet. And the answer
Hi,
also short.
hi, Ong Nai So and Debbie. Thank you so much. I was very moved by the film, and I also was very moved by some of the statistics and the things that you talked about. And I would love to host some film screenings in my home in Seattle, Washington when I return. I love how at the end of the film that you talk about, who's doing what, where they are. I would also say that you could add some of those things that you've talked about, how, there's been more attacks on Myanmar citizens this year than there has been in the Ukraine. Some of those statistics that kind of put it into perspective from a global viewpoint. Thank you.
Thank you for this suggestion. Anyone more? No? So that was the question about how to prevent the UN from becoming too close. I think I am rephrasing it, but more or less this is the point. How to prevent the UN to become too close to the junta, particularly in relation to the election, and to avoid that they start to talk about involving and engaging with the military, what you have said. Maybe a quick reaction to that?
Sure. Thank you so much, Paul, for asking this question. And thanks for the comment as well. So I think like quite a lot of individuals, organizations, activists, they have been advocating the UN agencies and many other NGOs like to cut any communication with the junta. But still, like we've been seeing those communication. I think we should keep raising awareness to them. We should keep raising our voices to them that it is not okay. Myanmar people had give enough information to any individuals, to any organization, that we're gonna do social punishment, which is really, really bad. We're gonna do social punishment if you or your organization have any affiliation with the junta. Some responded like, it is too harsh, blah blah blah. But I would say that we as Myanmar people have full rights to apply any social punishment to any individuals or any organization who have been making any communication with the junta. And another comment about screening in Seattle, and to add a statistic about what's happening around in Myanmar. I really appreciate your comments, and please feel free to reach out to me anytime. We can organize. I can share you the Google Drive link so that you can organize a screening when you're back home in Seattle. And the other thing is that you suggested me to add a statistic, but so when I add the graphics of the characters who have been continuing their voice, it was very challenging for me. They are actually doing more activities, more jobs than I mentioned in this film. But we cannot mention all of it because of the security concern. So I had to have like really good word choice, to describe what they've been doing. I also want people to get inspired on them as well. So, I have to be balanced between those two edges, but in terms of the statistic that you suggested to add in the film, I'm really afraid that as a journalist or as a storyteller, I'm really afraid that if people would get bored because of statistic, regardless of any kind of statistic, although they are dramatic or how sorrowful they are, people, I learned that people kind of get bored with too many data and statistics. So that's why I suggested you all to scan the 2 QR codes at the end of the screen, like maybe at the end of the event, SEA-Junction can leave the 2 QR codes open so that you will see more data and statistics. Thank you.
We can leave it here. Debbie, you want to quick reaction to this?
Please subscribe to www.altsean.org, ALTSEN. Within the first week of every month, we have a cool watch summarizing what's happened the month before. If you are a researcher, you can go to our thematic trackers because there are summaries of reports on under each theme. So our team works very hard and summarizes 500 articles a month. So please, and if you want to translate it or share it around, please do so. The other thing that we need to understand, the other linkage to Ukraine, besides the fact that the junta actually got weapons from Ukraine before Ukraine was invaded, and they decided not to do that anymore, is that Russia is one of the biggest allies of this junta. Is the biggest, one of the biggest sources of weapons. And when Aung Naing was talking about the surge in attacks on civilians on the Armed Forces or Fascist Forces Day, March 27. March 27, 2021 was the launch of a spike in attacks targeting civilians. During that day, there was a gala event in Naypyidaw to celebrate the military, and the guest of honor was the Deputy Defense Minister of Russia. So we see very clearly that our phantom menace, the source of some of this threat that's happening in Burma, is the same force which has invaded Ukraine. And if there's any reason whatsoever, if Europe doesn't give a damn about what's happening in Burma, they should give a damn about what Russia is doing.
Okay, I think it's very clear. So we have to close. I want to signal this is actually the catalog of the exhibition where actually because he's a man of many talents. So he also had photograph on a refugee from Myanmar to Thailand. And at the back, there is the website. You can take a picture if you don't want to buy the catalog. But if you buy, you support SEA-Junction. So I am closing this event. I think it was very important discussion. So thank you for making the time to be with us and for being willing to share your documentary. We will continue to remain in touch. I think we already have a close relationship, and for sure we will share the code to everyone so that they can take it from here. Debbie, I should announce that the next, we still hold, in spite of Myanmar fatigue, we continue to hold these monthly updates on what is happening in Myanmar, and we have had Kinomar for 6 episodes. We have done this since the beginning of the coup. So you can imagine initially be weekly, then monthly. We can see that there is indeed fatigue. People are less the one who listen, but still we think it's important to continue to do as a form of solidarity to the people of Myanmar, and also because it's a very good information. You don't need to read too much, but just be at the update and you will get the complete overview of what is happening. So the next one in January will be again with Debbie, because already in the past she has done it before. And she may not be allowed to say bad words, the same way we have also our pater here. I will leave him I will leave him to reflect. Maybe he can ask God why people become monsters. I think this is a question for God rather than for our presenter. With this, I invite you to take some coffee and tea and continue the discussion. And on your way out, please give a donation, because it allows us to continue to advocate for Myanmar, another important issue in this region. Thank you very much, and see you at the next.
Thank you all very much. Bye.
We will be in touch. Bye-bye.